I'm going to introduce two phrases which I want you to imagine will act, in a sense different from innocence, as poetic codons. And part of what I mean by poetic codons is that other words, phrases, and meanings will, throughout this recording, orbit the codons I supply. Having not yet entirely selected these codons, the astute listener will immediately understand that my mind and the minds of those listening right now is in a state, if you will, of 9 turtles that might otherwise be understood as receptive anticipation. None of us can predetermine when the codons will be supplied. Furthermore, it should be clear, as it is to me now, here, that the possibility of the codons already having been supplied has not been specifically excluded. The fact of the peculiar smile of very young children should now be understood to have an influence on all of the terrain we have together previously covered. I have understood, and I want to say, I have understood. I want to know. I need the invisible topologies inside the words I am speaking to rise into conscious awareness. Precisely 3 bulldogs. 3. those specific dogs, they were not the category, not the cat, not the egregore, not the cat agore, the actual dogs. Actual dogs, the way the smoke framed his face as she gently combed his hair with the fingers, with her fingertips. There are occasionally mitigating circumstances that we should know better than to not attend. The reflection of those specific clouds and these specific ducks in the puddle isn't a mirror. And you have to know what's not a mirror. I begin to understand. I begin to understand. My beginning to. Now I would like, there are things, and I would like for we together to somehow lift that 9-ton flower, to unbecome the lethal statues of dead liberty floating everywhere in the thick blanket of a tragic social membrane, torn, a tragedy fibrously membranous, torn, the thing I'm trying to untear. You can't. I've tried, you can't. I've tried, you can't. To sew it back together. It just doesn't go. Somehow, in time, sequences of time, pulses, vibrations, frequencies, somehow nearly all of those ships hit the rocks and sink. Somehow, one remembers, I remember, you remember the moment before we hit the water for the first time. It might as well have been another mind. I'm here to tell you. The codons are and have long been fundamentally invisible, undetrimentally indivisible. A gene-like apparition in the lingual placenta's fundamental understructure. 7, 3. 9. Now you'd like to think the same way I'd like to think. That a beautiful conspiracy like ours could suddenly invert and lift us high above the trial of industry and the dust, the endless kinds of dust it foments. And we long ago discovered, if not we have invented, a way to simultaneously unsplit the line. And if you see me walking backwards, that would be a good moment to begin to count. And you can count with letters. B, O, B, U, and just keep counting. I saw myself this way, under the sky so old, like a tree moving in the light. Like the way you remember the flavor that first lucid nodule, like a gem in the velvet of night, shining, burning, speaking. Who knew a door could be a light, could be these words, could be tomorrow? There are things so forbidden that if you notice them, sound disappears. The colors start to melt together. It forms the terrible shape of a letter that is itself an image, that is itself a glyph, that is the way I saw her look. And then I fell unconscious. And then I slept. These leaves my wrist. The broken statues tilt. Who saw me sing me say these words? I did, and there were birds within. And you could hear them, and you could see them, and they would never land on money. Never. Not one of those birds would try at a coin or a bill or a chunk of gold. One could reasonably say these birds themselves were not outgunned. These birds themselves never shot. I remember a long remembering ago, I used to like to remember. But not just things to be remembering. And here I'm trying. Somewhere here are codons. It circles my head, it doesn't circle my head. It's circling, it's not, I'm not, I didn't, I wasn't, I can't, I won't. I never would, you see? It's not impossible to do. It's doing the impossible like this. It's this kind. As if you spun a wheel, but the wheel was the tongues of all your ancestors, and they sometimes deigned to speak. A light in speaking, a brightness there in speaking. The resemblance of reflections on the water is telling but inconclusive. The resemblance of reflections in the mind is pre-conclusive.